We're going to immediately start off with a card that seems like Spooty Bait, but I believe isn't, but of course seems amazing in my cube. And that is Knight of Dawn's Light, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it's spelled Knight. Pretty fun, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even
One
think
and a
of the
white.
pun.
I didn't either.
You're welcome. 1 and a white for an uncommon human knight. It is a 2/2 with first strike. I'll stop you right there. I wouldn't play that, but that is decent.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
good
start.
stats.
As long as the rest isn't just some life gain bullshit, we'll be fine.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. It's not. If you would gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. Now we're talking. Now we're talking actual board presence. And then it also has one more ability, and not really going to use it. 1 and a white, Knight of Dawn's Light, gets +1/+1 until end. This card is kind of scary on the board, though.
Yeah.
And I'm actually ignoring the life gain part of it.
Yeah.
The activated ability
The
part,
threat.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah. With
With
the first
first
strike
strike?
in tandem,
That's a good threaten mechanic of just
absolutely.
you've got some open mana. It can be big and scary.
And the flavor text lets you build a life gain theme thing for your Christian argument. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
Your God-given argument.
Yeah, and I mean it's a human knight, so decent.
Yep, absolutely. Having first strike inherently is kind of cool in peasant archetypes specifically. So a lot of your equipment that you can play, your better equipment, give first strike.
Yes.
But most of ours does not. And first strike is one of the better abilities that you can get on, a well-statted creature that you're being aggressive with, right? So
Yeah.
it inherently having first strike is really cool because that means that if you do put a bone splitter on it or something like that, this thing is insane. I mean, it just gets in there, and then maybe they've got a 5 toughness guy to block with, but then you're like, I still can't really block because they can threaten the pump, and that's certainly worth it if they're using 2 mana to kill a 5 toughness creature, so it's good aggressively, it's decent defensively because of the first strike. It is scary to play when your opponent has mana up, and then on top of that, it also gets an added benefit in that life gain deck. So already just a really, really solid start to this. I think this is going to be a really good card.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, even ignoring the life gain stuff, I think it's a solid
Mhm.
card, and incidentally, there'll be some life gain that you'll gain an extra 1 or 2, but I think it's just a solid 2-drop creature in white.
Yep, absolutely.
Speaking of things that can gain you life,
Yeah, next up is Phyrexian Missionary. It's one of my least favorite sex
I was
positions.
just gonna make the joke.
I don't know, dude. I'm a pretty big fan of that kinky Phyrexian stuff.
Harry just wants sex.
Hey, it doesn't matter, man. Sex is sex.
Find the single guy in the show. Eric laughs so he does not cry.
Shit. He's like, ha ha ha, yeah.
I can do both
gets
at the
closer
same
to the
time.
temple. All
So
right,
this
read it.
is 1 and a white for an uncommon Phyrexian human cleric. It is a 2/3 with lifelink. It also has Kicker. Kicker's back in the set. Kicker's a great mechanic. This one has Kicker for 1 and a black. So we'll talk about that in a second. But if it enters the battlefield and was kicked, you return target creature card from your grave to your hand. Nice additional benefit that you can get off of that if you're getting later into the game. 4 mana to get 2/3 lifelink and another creature to your hand. The 4 mana mode is not insane by any means.
No, but
I
it's a
think
solid
correctly
bonus.
costed. Yeah, it's nice that your lower cost creature can scale a little bit into the late game, mid and late game.
Well, yeah, and like once you're that far in, you're gonna get something. Like you're not like
Yeah, exactly.
you'll
yeah.
have traded out stuff that you can get some value out of it.
It also doesn't specify it needs to be CMC 3 or less, which they usually do, or even 2 or less in some cases, or power 2 or less, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
There's
just
usually some kind of stipulation. This is just get a creature. So
yeah, full on grave
if
robber.
you have a Sarah Angel, right, that they've destroyed, and then you top deck this, you get this 2/3 lifelinker, and then also you get the Sarah Angel, which is pretty insane. So great value there. This brings our first point of discussion regarding these new kicker cards. So I think
Yes.
every single one of them makes the card quote unquote multicolored, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Well, okay, I'm judging that card by card, but I don't think that there are any with kicker.
Oh
at the
yeah,
same
yeah,
time.
yeah, 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 yeah. You are
in the
correct
set.
there. Yes.
Yeah.
All of the kickers add colors. There's a rare cycle or 2 of them that we discussed a couple of where you have the ability to like
Both.
add 2 different colors, and most of those actually suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The uncommons and commons in the set are so weirdly better than the rares. I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm happy because, like, that's way more interesting to me than just making the most push mythic every single set over and over again.
I 100% agree. One thing I'm going to bring up regarding that real quick before we get into this is that there are, because of the exact point you just said, there are so many of these in this set, and so many of them are like actually respectable and very flexible, as kicker cards tend to be. The issue they have is, by nature of how they're designed, they are at least somewhat a multicolored card. And as we've discussed many times over, having an excessive bulk of multicolored cards in your cube can be a detriment, unless that's what you're going for. You can certainly build a cube that is multicolored focused, in which case these seem amazing in that environment. But because of that, it does make it hard to talk about a bunch of them because they're competing with each other to an extent.
I think one of the big things with these ones are, how does it work if it's just played in a single color deck?
Yes.
And how does it work if it's played in a deck that has the ability to do the kicker, but that's not its primary focus?
That's my thing, is if you can incidentally kick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because with a lot of these, just like with the rares, the kicker portion is nice, but is not required. It's not like the main mode is the kicker every time. They seem to be very much split cards in how they get kicked or not.
Exactly.
The weight of how good the card is not heavily on the kicker side of things. It's pretty well balanced on most of them. Which makes me think that for a lot of these, I'd slot them in monocolor, knowing that you're just increasing the want to not play monocolor decks by having a bunch of these in your cube, but they're not eating up your strict multicolor slot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that this one specifically, from like a cube design perspective, it works a lot like Lingering Souls does, where the front half of Lingering Souls is totally respectable, stat line for what you're paying. And then if you have the ability, and this is the other thing, right? So depending on your mana base in your cube, that incidental, black pip, maybe 3 sources of black in your deck, can be much more easily obtainable at very little sacrifice, to where you could play this in a red-white, artifact aggro deck or something like that, because you're like, oh, it's got lifelink, and if I put a bone splitter, I'm getting a bunch of life, blah, 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 right? But then maybe you just have a blood crypt in there, and you're like, you know what? Maybe it'll happen.
And I think the other thing is, our opinions are all going to be slanted because we run rare cubes where you can have your City of Brass, everything else, and you can just use whatever color you want. You're running rare lands in your peasant cube, which a lot of people won't be doing that. So we do have to remind everybody at home, when we evaluate these, if we're overselling how easy it is to do multicolor, that's why. If you're playing peasant and you are very strict on it, or you're playing pauper, if we discuss any common things that are multicolor based, like, we come from, it's much easier to get all the colors you need.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the slower ones will work better, even in that, like, just if you have a slower mana base, having a slower card, like a 2/3 lifelink, will work better in that kind of aspect, because you'll have, like, talismans and come into play tap lands and stuff like that, and it's not a huge concern.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, Phyrexian Missionary, it's kind of unexciting, but it's also a 2-drop white creature. It seems fine.
Yeah.
It's no Phyrexian doggy style.
No. It's very vanilla.
All right, up next.
Let's finish off white. Next up and last off in white is Resolute Reinforcements. 1 and a white. These are all 2-drops. These are all 1 and a white for a creature.
Weird.
1/1 Human Soldier. It's an uncommon. It has Flash. And when it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So, this card is not insane by any means, but it does fill in a little bit of a gap that I know I have had frustrations with in the past, which is that the 2-drop token makers in white tend to be instants and usually sorceries specifically.
Yeah.
And that can get really awkward because, like, well, for example, Phyrexian Missionary and et al., right, which are basically, with these white weenie style decks, get a creature card from your grave, or 2 to 4 8 creature,
flickers or bounces or whatever.
Exactly. Any of these things where those cards are totally good, but those decks don't usually care about instants and sorceries at all, and they do care about creatures. Yeah, so this is basically a creature version of Raise the Alarm. And Raise the Alarm is totally fine. The instant speed does matter and is pretty cool. So I think that this pretty easily replaces most slots that are playing that card. The caveat to that is that you do sometimes have cubes where, for example, in a blue-white deck, you do want a certain number of spells.
Mm-hmm.
And we're actually going to get to a card near the end here that is about that. But
one of my problems is Intangible Virtue, which is really the strength of those token decks. Like, that's how you're like, I'm overrunning you, and now they're bigger, and you're going to die kind of thing. Absolutely. I like Resolute Reinforcements. I don't think it's a bad card, but there's trade-offs going on there. Mm-hmm. Like, it's only getting 1 token instead of 2. The actual Resolute Reinforcement card itself isn't going to get buffed by your Intangible Virtue. So it's just trade-offs kind of thing on how you want to actually make those decisions on what you want for instant and sorcery creating tokens or more creature-based. But I think it's a nice option to have so that you can actually make those decisions.
I'm really glad they actually created this card because it is nice that niche is an available option, whereas it wasn't before.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to blue.
Oh, we got another common or uncommon. I'll take this one, guys.
Oh, boy. This is the best part of doing it this way, is we did all of our bullshit reading the whole time. And now it's like, oh, I can finally relax. I don't have to read 5 paragraphs of Planeswalker text.
Yeah. So this is Academy Wall. This is a common 2/3 wall with Defender, and it is a 0/5. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may draw a card. If you do discard a card, this ability triggers only once each turn. I don't care about the only triggers once each turn thing. That
that is not going to happen.
We've had that discussion a lot. I think that we are in the smaller subsection of Magic players that actually doesn't care that they've been putting that on cards.
Yeah.
It was not, I couldn't care less.
If you're trying to do like combo stuff, it's annoying, but like that's not why we're here for Academy Wall. This is a 0/5 with Defender that gives you card selection.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So this isn't the most insane card at that slot, but we do know that 5 toughness is so much more than 4 toughness.
It's super annoying.
Murmuring Mystic, right? And that's what really keyed me into this card. 3 mana is kind of a lot for a wall. You usually want your wall to get out there a little bit earlier, but still, like, it really walls things off. Comes out a turn earlier than Murmuring Mystic, right? And much like Murmuring Mystic, it's giving you sort of like a slight advantage when you're playing your spells. It is nice that it doesn't compete at the same spot on the curve as Mystic does, because I think that would be a problem for it if it did. Like, if it were stronger but cost 4 mana, I don't think I'd play it, ironically.
Yeah, because you only want so many 4 mana in that deck.
Yeah. But Guy, can you imagine being like a red aggro player and they curve this into Murmuring Mystic after having like a counterspell on turn 2 or something like that? Like, it's just, you can't get through.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking impossible.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't really know if there's much more to say about that. It's also cool that it's a common. It reads kind of like a modern day Magic common, so it's not that it's insane for that reason, but it'll be nice that Pauper players can play this as well.
All right, let's talk about the card I'm most excited for in this set, Christian. Defend this crap.
Fuck you. So next up is Battlewing Mystic. This is 1 and a blue for a 2/1 uncommon bird wizard. It has flying, and then it has kicker of a single red. When this enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, discard your hand, then draw 2 cards. This card, the reason why Brad has a problem with this card is because he thinks that we get such amazing things at this power level, or at this rarity level, and this is probably the best 2/1 flyer for 2 that we have in blue.
Yeah, at rare
Brad's we just get a spoiled asshole.
We get a decent number of options for 2/1 flyers in blue. The discard your hand, draw 2 cards has historically been underwhelming in its actual use cases.
The word is bad.
Look, I don't think this is an insane card, but I think it's totally respectable.
Yeah.
You, more often than not, you should be playing it as a 2 mana 2/1 flyer, especially on turn 2. Do not wait until turn 3 or later to cast this if you can cast it on turn 2.
Yeah, 100%. That's kind of the thing. Like, giving your options at blue for 2 evasive things.
Mm-hmm.
Bladewing Mystic seems completely comparable, and it does open up the option of having that kicker to get card advantage kind of stuff.
If this card were 1 and a red, I feel like everyone would be all over it.
Well, generally 1 in a red doesn't give evasive 2-power things. So yeah.
Sure. But like my argument is that blue barely does in this cube as well.
Yeah.
In this format, I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, given it's an uncommon, it makes sense.
Yeah. Definitely don't play this in control. It doesn't, unless you plan on blocking with it.
Probably
not what you want to be doing on turn 3 in your control deck.
But the next one is definitely a control deck card.
Yeah.
No, I think we're playing this in aggro, Eric.
Yeah. Some of our drafters might have tried.
So this is kind of incredible, I think. This is Djinn of the Fount. 4 blue for an uncommon Djinn, and it is a 4/4 flyer. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one. Brad, they gave me a choose one.
Oh, shit.
On a 4/4 flyer. And I get to choose between 3 different things, and they're all good for you.
Like, and they're not.
One of them doesn't just say like lose the game. Like it's
you
choose one you haven't chosen
nice.
this game. Yeah. So the 3 choices are Djinn of the Fountain gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Skipping the second one because it says too much, and then scry 1. No, the third one says exile this, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This is Aetherling.
Yeah, I was like, I think that one actually is pretty big.
This is uncommon Aetherling. It's not as good.
I was gonna say that's pretty clickbaity, but yeah.
But look, I don't care if it's clickbait. That's the way I read this right now. On first impression,
I can already see the thumbnail. The thumbnail. Uncommon Aetherling. What were they thinking?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Put my face on it. It'll be my next
Christian shocked face.
There you go. Pog, uncommon Aetherling. What is Gavin smoking? Put Gavin up there with a pot leaf.
Let's not do that. I need to have access to magic.
Put him up there with a maple leaf.
He's just really excited about Canada.
Pog, Gavin's Canadian.
I do think Djinn of the Fountain will probably play similar to Aetherling's play for uncommon. Like, it's going to be annoying like that.
It's harder to protect it, but it just means you need to play a little bit differently. Like that time where you're in the mid game and you've got a ponder in hand that you just drew, and you have this. Much like Aetherling, you wait until your 7th land drop. So that, although I guess ponder sorcery.
Yeah, I was like, hold on a second.
Sorry, hold on. Sorry, I literally just clicked on the first card that I saw.
Let's try something that.
And you get opt in your hand, strictly better
go.
than ponder, and then you just wait to. Pog, they made ponder instant maple leaf.
Maple leaf.
Anyway, this is super exciting. I mean, I've complained, and I'm going to say this a few times, they've added multiple cards in this set that I've been complaining about for years. Lack of them, which is
they put cards
cool.
that I've been complaining about for years in the set.
And I'm super excited for it, too.
Yeah, I love it.
Magic has broken us.
Pog.
Stop saying that word.
You're triggering
I currently play Jetting Glasskite.
Okay,
I think that this just fills that role. I don't think it's completely better, obviously, but it's so much more interesting, I'll tell you that much. It's a very, very exciting card that I think somebody on another Discord, I've been cheating on you guys, sorry. Somebody on another Discord tagged me when it released, and I looked at it and I was like, oh god. And when I first read it, I skipped over flying by accident. And so I'm reading it and I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't get evasion or anything. This is fucking Wizards of the Coast, man. They always clickbait me into thinking that it's going to be like this great control finisher with no evasion, right? And then I looked up and I'm like, no fucking way.
So when you get this card, you're going to have it altered to have Will Smith on it, right?
Ooh, yeah. And a maple leaf.
It's enough of that maple leaf shit. Let's get to the next card.
Brad, why don't you take this one?
All right, so
all right, that's all I wanted. I'll take over from here.
All right, so Founding of the Third Path is 1 in a blue.
You already fucked it up.
What?
There's no of.
No of.
Oh, weird. Okay, so Founding the Third Path is 1 in a blue for a saga with read ahead. For this episode, I guess we had to redo read ahead. Choose a chapter and start with that many lore counters. Add one after you draw. Add one after your draw step. Skipped chapters don't trigger sacrifice after the third. Chapter 1 is you may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value 1 or 2 from your hand without paying its mana cost. Chapter 2 is target player mills 4 cards, and Chapter 3 is exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Copy it. You may cast the copy. Note you do have to pay cost for it.
Oh shit, Wizards made Snapcaster uncommon.
Oh shit, Pog.
It's actually, like jokes aside, it's pretty fucking good. Like, comparing it to what Snapcaster tends to be doing of like bolt and stuff, it's not like Snapcaster good of like snap him in and get counterspell mid-stack and all that shenanigans. But like from a standard case, it's fine for that. It obviously gains a ton of ground when you're playing like combo-centric cubes, where you can really go off using this, and you want the mill, and then that part's good, and the exiling something to play it again is disgusting if you're like exiling your demonic tutor or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, the high end of this is amazing. The problem is, I think in Christian's cube, it basically gets played fair.
And I'm not happy about playing fair enchantments.
Yeah. Yep. No, absolutely. I do actually play demonic tutor, though. That's a good point to bring up. And bolt, I guess.
Yeah, like just an incinerate being on 1 and 3 here is fine in a blue-red control-y deck. And you're the deck who wants to have things in their yard.
One of the big problems that I have with this card, I have with a lot of really good blue cards, is that they're enchantments. And I think we've discussed this before.
Right.
I've discussed it with you guys. And that is that most of these cards in these blue decks at peasant level, including this previous card that we just read, the Shin there, they care about specifically instants and sorceries. They've been moving towards that a lot more over the years.
Yeah.
And so the more pushed cards that are being played, they more often than not care about the instant and sorcery clause. So enchantment is sort of this awkward spot where the card can absolutely be of the right power level, but the synergy is awkward enough that you might find yourself cutting this card in lieu of just another instant and sorcery spell that's going to be roughly the same value on average, and actually trigger, your Murmuring Mystic or whatever it is. Although Murmuring Mystic, that one might be non-creature now that I think about it. I think that one is not, but either way, interesting card.
All right, so let's move on to a very useful type of counter that was added to the game, and it's giving a lot of value.
I guess I'll take this one.
You are just so bitter.
I am not bitter.
We've got Impede Momentum, 1 and a blue for a sorcery. Tap target creature and put 3 stun counters on it. Scry 1.
So we all are very familiar with stun counters at this point.
Obviously.
Been around for a long time. And I think this is a perfect example of just how they play.
So a stun counter is if a permanent with a stun counter would be untapped, remove 1 from it instead.
So this is basically they keyworded Frost, but incorrectly?
I don't think...
Like, correctly, but yeah.
I don't think this card's amazing. I don't think it's bad. It's very fair. It's a common. You
know what I wish? I think I wish it were instant, haha, duh, but they made it like 2 stun counters or something like that to, not make it too, I guess, busted. Maybe you could still make it 3. I don't know. Obviously, I've never played with this specific effect before. It's temporary removal for most things. And
it's also not an enchantment. There's a lot of blue enchantments that tap something down and keep it under control. And similar to what you just said of like, you need to have a certain number of sorcery instants.
Yeah, that's a good point I was actually just to bring up. So I know we've talked about this on the show before. I know I've definitely talked about it with you two previous to this, but enchantments are in a weird spot right now where they're really awkward. Most blue cards care about instants and sorceries.
I feel like you could have pulled that joke off, but you just didn't go for it all the way.
I'm lazy.
That's fair.
All right, so let's recover.
Really zoom in on
cares about instants and sorceries. Really zoom. Oh, shut the fuck up. Anyway,
we're finding our appeal.
Next is Micromancer. So this is 3 and a blue for a 3/3 human wizard at uncommon. When Micromancer enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an instant or sorcery card with mana value 1, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Do you know what I want to do with this probably more than anything else?
Throw it in the garbage.
No, I want to play this in my blue-black reanimator deck because it can get reanimate.
Fair.
Okay.
It's always weird that you can play Reanimate to me.
Right, isn't it? This card, I think, is one to keep an eye out for. I could definitely see situations where people feel like they can't play it right now. But as time moves on, and for example, we're going to cover a black removal spell that's 1 mana here in the near future. But, 1 mana curves are lowering as time goes on. And so it's specifically having to be mana value 1, I think will matter more and more as time goes on. I checked through my cube. I don't have the filter up right now, and I don't feel like doing it because, again, aforementioned lazy. I have an okay amount of hits for it. It's not a crazy amount, but I know Reanimate was the one where like I skipped it the first time that I was looking through. I kind of missed it, and then all of a sudden it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't Reanimate like a sorcery? And yeah, so that was pretty cool.
I think my problem is you're not wrong that things are getting more efficient, but I think by the time that this becomes strong enough, a 4-mana 3/3 is going to be laughable.
I mean, a 4-mana 3/3 is already a little laughable, which I think is the problem with this card.
Yeah, I could see some people having fun with it, but I would pass.
I will say this. I would so much rather play this than Archaeomancer.
Fair.
And that might be a little bit of a hot take. I'm not a huge fan of Archaeomancer as a card specifically.
No, that's fine. I don't think anyone really defends it as like the best thing ever or anything.
Yeah.
This at least has a relevant body. It may not be doing much for you by turn 4, but Archaeomancer is just a 1/2. Like it's so if all this gets is an opt or a ponder or whatever, that still represents more in many cases in these blue decks than just whatever the effect of that card is. It's tutoring for 1 more instant and sorcery, so you might get an extra bird token off of it, or another, draw discard off of the freaking wall.
True. When you don't think of it in a vacuum, it improves a lot in that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that's kind of cool is you can go token Saheeli on turn 3 into this, so you get a nice chunky blocker to help Saheeli live, as well as get the spell to then cast to trigger her to make another servo. Like there are plays with this, and I think it's not overpowered, but I do think it's kind of cool. It's also, you don't really get these kinds of effects at this power level as well. That's another thing to keep in mind, like the sort of specific spell tutoring effects.
Yeah, I was just, you brought up Archaeomancer, and I was like, yeah, I guess some people do defend that as not being complete garbage. So
right.
Yeah.
Isn't the upside to Archaeomancer that it's common though?
Yeah.
Okay. So you get to have your excuse, pauper players who like it.
I just hate the poor.
I do too. That's why I have you around, so that I don't have to talk directly to them.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to ignore that. The next card that we're about to talk about, I guess one topical benefit to it is that it is technically a 1-mana instant. I didn't really think about that combo specifically there, of being able to tutor something like this. So, good segue. Next card is Rona's Vortex, which is a blue instant at uncommon. Return target creature or planeswalker you don't control to its owner's hand, but it also has kicker for 2 and a black. If this spell was kicked, put that permanent on the bottom of its owner's library instead. So it's kind of a split card, unsummon murder, I guess.
Yeah, it's basically murder on the second ability. Like, this is probably, in my opinion, the best unsummon for cube ? I can't think of one that I'd rather have.
Did you want to Pog Maple Leaf that one, or
no?
There are some potentially defendable other ones for other reasons.
There are.
I do wonder if they print like the most powerful unsummon, and they're like, what should we call this powerful thing? I know what's going on right now. We'll call it Rona.
I didn't think of that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I thought about that earlier. So you give something the Rona.
It's not the most exciting card, but it is, I think, arguably the most powerful unsummon.
Yeah, to me, the thing is, like, it's in the perfect colors for if you're playing, like, a Ninja's archetype where you're playing that tempo deck.
Yeah.
It is unfortunate that, like, a lot of tempo decks are going to be in green or white as a secondary color, but blue-black specifically because of Ninjas has become more popular recently.
Yeah. There's also, like, the Is It Spellsy kind of.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I like that it'll work in any of those.
Earlier. You can, sorry, not to cut you off, I didn't mean to, but like what we discussed earlier still holds true here. You can play a blue-red control deck that has 2 black sources. Green especially.
Yeah. The thing with me with this card is everyone loves Blood Chief's Thirst, right? Like, it's just a good black 1-drop removal spell.
You know what? I actually don't play that because I'm not a huge fan of it.
Oh, really?
But
okay.
Yeah, but go on.
So Bloodchief's Thirst in 4-mana mode, this is basically the same thing, like 90% the same thing.
Yeah, essentially.
But like in 1-mana mode, I kind of prefer this. Because, like, I'd rather have the unsummon than the, like, only kill something 2 or less. But, I mean, for certain control decks, the 2 or less is whatever you care about. Like,
right.
I can see the argument between the two.
In Peasant, the 2 or less is a little bit more powerful comparatively than in your cube it would be, because once you hit 3 mana and above, power level drops significantly.
It's true. And the most annoying things early game that you're looking to get rid of with your 1 mana are going to be 2 or less anyway.
Yep.
So you have that defense for it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those that, like, I think Rona's Vortex is a perfectly reasonable mono blue card, and it's not particularly difficult to have black in the decks that it's going to play. It's just going to be a common thing that you have access to that mode. So
uncommon.
Fuck you. We have so long left. You can't keep doing this.
You can't keep getting away with it. So speaking of common things, Dominaria is getting fucked over.
Nah, dude, it's just having a good time.
That's like Tuesday for Dominaria, knowing the shit that goes on in that school. And plus, Dominaria's gone, so like...
I know, did you see the terror? Tolarian Terror is a common, which is great, actually, that this one's a common. That's actually really cool. This is 6 in a blue for a 5/5 Serpent with Ward 2, and it costs 1 generic less to cast for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. So there is this and a sort of a black version of this card that we'll get to in the next section here, that it's kind of like a package discussion. So I think we'll talk about it, regarding this one here, and then the card later on. We can just kind of be like, same. But anyway, this one, this new templating that they're doing for this, of it reducing for it instead of it being, remove them, like a delve sort of scenario kind of thing. This ends up playing, it's a little bit more difficult to get out there than delve, obviously, but having multiples of them makes it much easier to work. Because usually things will, like, for example, Rise from the Tides, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to play something like, let's say, Gurmag Angler
in deck.
The same deck that you're looking to play Rise from the Tides.
Right.
Whereas this, you can play them both. So even though Gurmag Angler might be more powerful because you can get it out earlier, like the Ward 2, it matters, but not a ton. Like, it matters, but, it's Ward still, right? This having less awkwardness when you're building a deck is really cool.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's not the most powerful card, so...
It isn't. That's why I'm glad this one's common. I think that Pauper players will get a little bit more out of this than Peasant will. Or honestly, I've seen some people talking about it for, like, Ural's level of cube. Is that a thing?
So anything that can get stupid cheap if you're, like, milling your library on turn 1 and 2, stuff like that, those always get talked about, even all the way up to, like, powered cubes, because
fetch lands and...
Yeah, the more of your deck you can get into your yard on turn 1 or 2, the more disgusting things like this look.
Yeah.
What's the, is it Murktide Regent? Is
that's
that the one
that's the new Delver. It's not Delver, but it's replaced Delver in Delver and...
Yeah, okay. So I know, like, obviously this is not that. I'm not suggesting it is, but I know people were like, oh my god, it's Murktide Regent at common.
But it is similar on how it functions to where, yes, I can see the argument in any cube type. If you want to try it, definitely do. I can't say this one tickles my fancy, but I mean, I've played Big Fish for a long time.
Yeah.
Big Fish.
Big Fish.
Big Fish. The other one that this compares favorably to is Cryptic Serpent, which was, I think, 5 blue. It had the same flavor text, but no ward. And that one I did play for a little bit, and it was exactly fine. But this one being able to go as low as 1 mana is kind of cool. Having the ward is a nice little addition. It's just a little bit better of an effect. Or rather, it's a better version of the effect. So yeah, that finishes off blue. Alright, so starting off black here with actually a really kind of cool card. I don't really understand what's going on in the art there. Is the red a tongue? Is it like its mouth's open and it's like that?
I have no idea.
Like
I'd have to see like a higher quality image than this.
Yeah, I was like...
The image I have in my head is a pot-bellied Komodo dragon with its tongue sticking out, its hand gonna grab you, and its other hand it's got like a ring.
I don't know, dude. To me, it looks like something's trying to eat a goblin and the goblin's running away.
That can't be right. I think it's the pot-bellied Komodo dragon.
That makes more sense, yeah.
So this is Balduvian Atrocity. 2 and a black for a 2/3 Phyrexian Berserker at uncommon. It has Menace, huge, and it has a kicker of a single red. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, you return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your grave to the battlefield. It gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step.
Neat.
This one also can be totally fine without the kicker mode.
Yeah, I mean, Menace is pretty good.
Comparing it, so I already know exactly what this is going to replace in my cube, and that is Black Bloom Rogue, which was from the Eldrazi land place that we went back to. That one.
Sure.
Black Bloom Rogue is the uncommon that also has Black Bloom Bog on the backside, where it can be like the tapped black source. But
yeah.
It's a 2/3 menace, and then it also has +3/+0 as long as the opponent has 8 or more cards in their grave. It comes up, but it has no way to fuel that or anything, and I mostly play it because it's a 2/3 menace, honestly.
Yeah.
I play so few of the Magic dumb fuck cards.
Yep.
That those that I do play are more annoying as a result. I actually, Black Bloom Rogue specifically, I had a drafter draft this card in real life in the past 2 years or whatever it was that I last drafted. They didn't even realize it had a backside. They're not like a huge Magic player. They just know how to play and they play on occasion.
Yeah.
And I told them at one point, they're like, oh, I didn't even know that was what it did. You know what I mean? It's just yeah. I think a lot of Magic players forget that sometimes that's the level of player that you are playing with. And that's why I kind of disliked them to begin with, was because they're just, if you're playing only a few of them, it just gets awkward. So I personally am going to be happy to remove that card, fine as it is, but for this card, because if nothing else, it's still a 2/3 menace.
I think this one's better because it's just kind of...
I agree with you.
It's doing the same thing, but it has a mode that's makes more sense in the decks that are going to be playing it. You're going to be playing the kicker a decent number of times to just push damage.
That's a very strong effect for just a single red mana.
Yeah. On what is already a fine enough base.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, this card's really cool. This is, it's one of those things where I'm very glad I can feasibly just stick this in as a black card. I don't really have to be like,
sure.
Oh, am I going to cut my really tight Rakdos section for this?
Yeah, no. I think this is
totally
a black card that's going to be played in decks that have red, and it's going to be played a decent amount of times, but...
You're going to splash for the red, yeah.
I think that segues perfectly into my opinion on the next card.
I was going to make the same segue. Look at us thinking alike. Choking Miasma. 1 black for an uncommon sorcery. All creatures get -2/-2 till end of turn. It also has a kicker of a single green. If this spell was kicked, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. I really like this card. The -2/-2 for 1 black at sorcery speed, that has been done time and time and time again. You got a bunch of different versions of it. You got the Noah Bradley one if you want to redacted.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of options for...
You got so many options. But this one, you really, really don't need the kicker on this one to play this effect.
Nah.
But if you can, it might mean the difference of, one of your things living or not. It won't keep your Blood Artist alive, but maybe it'll, I don't know. What have we got here? Let's see. What is that one called? 1 second. Hold, please. Nope, that has 1 toughness. Okay. Well, that has 1 toughness. Your Ravenous Chupacabra. All right, so maybe it won't work perfectly, but that's why it's good that it doesn't need to have the green to be worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the kicker's going to happen basically ever, but it's up to, there's enough options of this 1 black, all creatures get -2/-2 with flavor. Choose which one you want.
The one that I'm currently playing, I only play a single one of these effects in my cube currently. The one I'm playing is Golden Demise, which is the Ascend one, where if you have Ascended, which is 10 or more permanents under your control...
It's Languish instead.
No. God, I wish. That would be amazing. No, it's just only your opponent's creatures get the effect and not yours.
Okay.
And the problem that I have with that card is it's a token payoff and a card that's good for the token deck when this is specifically supposed to be a card that punishes the go wide strategy.
Right.
So that's kind of awkward. It's like the token deck can pick it up and be like, sick, I'll put this in my token deck, when that's not supposed to be how that shit works. So I like this more from a cube design point of view.
Yeah, it's a nice option to have.
Okay, so next up, Gavin, if you're listening, I'm going to Maple Leaf.
but not enough that...
That was the word. I couldn't think of it at the time. Okay, cut. Next up is Cult Conscript. A single black mana. I'm so excited. They printed what the fuck is your best bring back a 1/2 mana 1 whatever the fuck. What's a good one? Name a good one. You know.
Gutter Bones.
No, not I said a good one.
I like Gutter Bones.
What's the best one? You got like a Gravecrawler. We'll say Gravecrawler. Pog, they printed Gravecrawler at Uncommon? Alright. Single black mana for a 2/1 Uncommon Skeleton Warrior. It enters the battlefield tapped, and you can pay 1 and a black to return it from your grave to the motherfucking battlefield.
At
Activate only if a non-skeleton creature died under your control this turn. Pogleaf!
I hate you.
No, I'm actually...
I mean, this
so
card's
excited.
amazing.
Yeah,
I'm
it is
so
amazing.
excited, dude.
It's one of those that, like, at Rare, we've gotten a decent number of these, and they're nice. Like, I don't know if I like this better than our other options.
Not at our rarity, but this is so close that it might be...
still be, like, have it as an option to increase the number.
Yeah. That's where I am on it. On, like, if you want one more, it's not, like, it's below the bar for us.
Yeah.
But for uncommon, it's unheard of. This is the
Fucking
beginning of a new era. Like,
it is the first one.
Yeah.
And
like,
I am so excited. I have been calling for this for actual years. I remember that, honestly, I'm not going to take credit for this, but I am going to do so. So a couple years ago.
I'm not taking credit, but you know.
I'm just saying, look, it was probably like 3 to 4 years ago now. Probably about 3 years ago now. Maybe more. It doesn't matter. They might have been right about to develop this set. That's all I'm saying.
This is
Gavin
Magic in
went on
2022.
Twitter.
They started developing this set 5 minutes before we saw spoilers.
Shut the fuck up. I'm trying to take credit for something, sort of. Gavin on Twitter asked Cubers what they were specifically looking for at the common or uncommon level. And I tweeted him a laundry list of different things. But one of the things I really touched upon was this specific type of black creature and how we had none of them. And of course, like, I've been calling for it for years, but I know he doesn't just regularly listen to the podcast. I don't think that's made an effect. But I would like to think that in that moment, he's like, got it. And then he made Cult He made Cult Conscript just for Spooty One. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm sure he also made Cut Down for you, too.
I'm not a huge fan of that card. I do like Choking Miasma Kicked, though. Okay, I'm kidding. Next up is probably one of the most ridiculous cards in the set.
Yeah,
Probably.
But I mean, okay, so here's my issue. Read the card.
Cut Down is a single black for an instant. Destroy target creature with total power and toughness 5 or less. What's your issue, Brad?
We did it.
Removal. We can say this is so nutty. This is crazy good 1-drop removal, and we're right. But removal is that thing that, like, has been pushed so hard, so heavily, especially even at these lower rarities, because you can just print this stuff at uncommon, that I'm like, I've lost excitement for this, because this is the 7th time you've shown me the best removal spell ever in a row, Wizards.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the delta between our best removal spells and this
is
they
nothing.
Do the same shit.
And honestly, the only reason this is so good is it's a 1-drop, and our 1-drop removal has always been the situational kind of, sorta.
Yeah, and this is just a different situational kind of, sorta, that's better. So, like, yeah, it's good, but it's also, like, fine. Cool.
Once again, this, I think, is better in my rarity level than yours, because even the higher mana cost creatures, they typically have less power and toughness, respectively.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be under that threshold more often. Yeah. And I know a lot of people have been like, oh, if you throw like this entire calculus into your search engine, then you can figure out the percentage that actually hits. I didn't do that shit because I don't really care. But
I mean, it's not particularly
it'll hit
difficult,
a lot.
But yeah.
Yeah. I heard it was actually impossible.
Yeah, right.
Actually impossible.
Just like extinguishing the light is impossible.
Next up is Extinguish the Light. 2 black for an instant at common. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. If its mana value is 3 or less, you gain 3 life. What the fuck? They printed Vraska's Content at common? Pog!
I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's like, I understand you can't just make a blanket statement like that and be taken seriously, but that's basically what it is.
Christian, nothing you say lets people take you seriously.
Pog!
I think it all depends on how many planeswalkers you're pushing.
Not that many.
Like,
but I think they're all mana value 3 or less.
Uncommon planeswalkers, but
yeah.
like,
well, so now you may make fun of me. It gains 3 life. That's the number. That's the number you gotta hit.
For your, like, 2 cards you care about.
For all the cards that I care about.
Those major payoffs.
Yeah.
They made the ultimate Christian bait.
I mean, I actually got to the point where I was considering, actually, do I play it? Hold on, give me 1 second. No, I don't think... I am still playing it!
Oh my god.
I'm playing Essence Extraction.
Okay, that's just bad. Okay.
Because I was like, hey, it's a nice instant speed removal spell that gains you 3 life. That's the niche. I gotta get this single card in there for that. It's the kind of thing I was looking for.
Yeah.
Fill in different curves. This does cost 4, which is a little bit more awkward.
I loved that in Kaladesh Limited as my 23rd card.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, it wasn't even a high pick.
Right?
Like, it was solid.
Yeah, you know what? It was solid. Thank you. This is gonna be better. Put it on the tin.
All right, you know what's better than Night of Dawn's Light?
The Night of the Dusk's Shadow. 1 and a black for a 2/2 human knight at uncommon. This one has Menace instead of First Strike. Both of those abilities are very strong. This one has the same sort of pump ability of 1 and a black. Night of Dusk's Shadow gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Equally as scary, although I will say First Strike is better with that pump ability than the Menaces, certainly.
Yeah, especially defensively. Yeah.
Exactly. This one also has your opponents can't gain life. So
I hate this
fuck
card.
your Extinguish.
No, I really like this card for that reason. Because the life gain decks, you gotta have some.
You gotta rope them in. They're too strong in Magic, those life gain decks.
Yeah, you gotta
I
really
see you've been on the Arena
sure.
subreddit.
What, oh my god, that's what I play in Arena. That's the only deck I play in Arena.
You piece of shit. You're so predictable.
The couple weeks ago, I was streaming it like twice a week.
Oh, wow.
Watched.
I could have been your 5th viewer.
Don't give me that much credit. I had 3.
2 were my
Bright counts for 2. He's big enough.
I'm big.
Yeah, I'm playing Skullcrack just for the can't gain life ability. Because no cards at my rarity level allow for that effect. I have Tibalt and that.
Have you ever thought of not caring?
Yeah, it's nice to have something in there as a valve, that way those decks do have something that where they can say, instead of saying I had no way to combat.
Like
we could open the valve to full at all times.
Yeah.
No, listen,
I think the opponent playing good cards is the valve.
I know we're shitting on you for no reason. I'm aware that
I was
going to
say, I'm like, you've literally never tried it.
No. I know it's better in Peasant. I know that you're not the only peasant who says this shit, but I can't resist coming from normal Magic.
But, I mean, that's like Night of Dusk's Shadow. Solid card, my opinion.
And that's why I'm excited about it, because unlike Skullcrack, which is just like, oh god, he's just playing this for that effect, I can just play this card and it's totally respectable.
Good aggressive
and
card.
then it also has that safety valve effect.
And to be honest, as long as you look at it as flavor text, it's that sulfuric vortex text where it never matters until your opponent is seething in their chair.
Until it does.
As they stare at their hand and you're like, got some life gain, huh? Why don't you try it?
It's just
especially when
hilarious.
They don't notice it. Right? They're like, my thing has life link, and they block, and they're like, all right, I gain 3, and you go, no. And they go, why? And you're like, read the card, read the fucking idiot. Card. Yeah, stupid ass. Put this in here just for you, asshole.
It's always good. It's always good.
Exactly. All right, last off in black is the card we alluded to earlier. This is Writhing Necromass, 6 and a black for a 5/5 common zombie giant. It has Death Touch, and it costs 1 generic less for each creature card in your graveyard. I like this one less than the Tolarian Terror.
Really?
But I do, in a vacuum, just because I think it's easier for those kinds of decks to quickly get a bunch of spells in their graveyard versus quickly get a bunch of creatures in their graveyard.
Yeah. Because I'm with him on that, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
fair.
Death Touch is also
Death Touch on a 5/5.
Practically irrelevant. Yeah, it's basically just a vanilla 5/5 as well.
Yeah, okay.
Hear me out for what I'm about to say.
You can reanimate it.
No. Yes,
okay.
You can actually. But I was going to say, do you think there is any argument to playing this over Gurmag Angler? I don't mean is it better than Gurmag Angler? Because
Probably
obviously you don't think so?
No.
I mean, it was one of those, like, if you were...
Because Gurmag, again, gets played in the spell-oriented deck as one of your, like, 4 creatures.
True.
If you had, like, 18 other delve options, sure. Yeah. You gotta pull back some of them, but, like...
Right.
When you're only playing, like, 4 or 5, maybe, then...
Okay.
No, I don't think it's
so. I guess your all's opinion is that if you're already playing Gurmag, you probably don't need to run this.
I don't think so.
Okay. Because one other thing I was considering is running both and just doing it that way. But that might be a little bit unnecessary too.
I guess I don't remember what else you have at, like...
Nope.
Okay, then. Maybe.
Yeah, that's always...
Let me stop you right there. This is a 5/5 vanilla that I'm like, hey.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is.
That's always where I am when I'm like, oh, come on, you have to have better. You have Palakaworm, and then I remember Palakaworm is like the mythic that was printed at Uncommon.
Yeah.
They upgraded it to rare later on.
Yeah, which is the dickest move.
That was
I know, right?
Huge bullshit.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think that if somebody decided to run this alongside Gurmag Angler, what I will say to that individual is that I'm considering doing the same thing as well. So I don't think you're crazy. If you are crazy, I'm right there with you. So that's where we're at. That finishes off black. So starting off here in red, we have Electrostatic Infantry. 1 and a red for a 1/2 Dwarf Wizard at Uncommon. It has Trample, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Electrostatic Infantry. This is a card. What is that one card's name? Unfortunately, when you play with cards and instead just give them funny nicknames, you only remember the funny nickname. So I was going to say, this is like a better version of Mouth Boy.
What does that even mean?
I wish I could tell you.
I wish I could tell you. He only knows it as Mouth Boy.
I only know it as Mouth Boy. I know what the art looks like. It's from, I think it's actually maybe from the original Dominaria. And it's like an elemental that is I think it's a 3-mana 2/2 that gets a counter whenever you play an instant or sorcery. But like that's it.
Okay.
And it doesn't make the cut, obviously. But it is a fun card. And I did try to run it momentarily because one of my friends in my playgroup, like she really, really liked it. So I tried to make it work, but it's just not quite there. However, this is a much more playable version of that.
Yeah, like this seems like a good card.
Yes, this seems like it's actually at the right power level. Really cool stuff. So glad they made it a counter and not temporary. My God.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're here. Like
Exactly. So glad they made it cost 2 mana instead of 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, altogether, I think Electrostatic Infantry is just a good card.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Is there
not much
anything
to
else
say about it.
Yeah.
That's always the problem.
It's just a good card.
That's always the problem when you have like just an extremely good card where you're like, this card's bananas. Let's move on.
Yeah, it's also like, it's not that complicated. Like, did you read the card? That's what it does.
Yeah, I can't even be like, oh, the +1/+1 counter synergies. That's never gonna fucking come up. Oh, that's a wizard. That's never gonna come up.
No.
Well, wizard probably somehow will.
I don't think it comes up at all in my cube, apart from I guess the sword. But okay.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
I think we can move on to a
much more innocuous
card.
Yeah. Next up is Keldon Strike Team. 2 and a red for a common 3/1 human warrior. It has Kicker for 1 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, you create 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. So that's 3 mana for a 3/1, 2 extra mana for 2 1/1s. And it also has the static effect of as long as Keldon Strike Team entered the battlefield this turn, creatures you control have haste. So if you do get the full 5 mana, red-white kicker version, you get a 3/1 with 2 1/1s, and they all have haste. It also kind of means that the 3 mana version of this is effectively a 3/1 haste.
Yeah, I think this is a really good
interesting card. Yes, you're saying exactly how I feel.
Because I mean, it is one of those like I think you do have to evaluate it as a Boros-y card because that's where it's getting the most of its power as just 5 haste power.
I think more than any of the other kicker cards we've discussed so far, this one's probably the closest to needing to be multicolored.
Yeah, like the 3 mana, 3 power haste is not awful. You'll play it and it'll do its job.
You'll probably feel bad though.
Yeah, you're banking on getting the full effect from a 5 power haste for 5 mana, just coming down and hopefully killing your opponent essentially.
It's kind of weird too, right? Because like I'm thinking of a turn where maybe you've got 5 lands out, it's a little bit into the late game, and you have a 2-drop in hand with this. Do you just like play the actual 2-drop card and then play this for 3 mana and give them both haste?
Yeah,
I think
depends.
It depends on the board state too much at that point. Like,
sure, but I feel like that awkwardness is awkward.
Yeah, that's my opinion on it. Like the best defense for this card is that it's a common.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the most adorable card in the set, and it's not close.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sprouting Goblin is one of the
It's just so happy. Right. He's just so happy.
Look at him. Is his hand? His head in his hand? Is his head behind his hands? It's hard to tell. Anyway, next up is Phoenix Chick, also known as Chandra.
Yeah.
This is single red mana for a 1/1 uncommon Phoenix. It has flying, it has haste, it has can't block, and whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, you may pay red. If you do, return this card from your grave to the battlefield tapped and attacking with a +1/+1 counter on it. This card reads very well.
It reads better than I read.
That's true. That's not hard.
It's not hard.
I think the attacking with 3 or more creatures will probably happen a little bit less than you want it to.
Sure, but it's also not that difficult to do.
Yeah. We would never play 1 mana 1/1 flying haste can't block on its own. Well, I never would. I'll say.
Yeah, I was like, speak for yourself.
Yeah, I never would.
Brad's trying to push Healer's Hawk on me. I'm gonna force him to play fucking Phoenix Chick.
Pog, they printed Healer's Hawk in red?
At uncommon?
At uncommon? Yeah. One thing that's interesting, we don't really get Phoenix effects at our rarity either. And by Phoenix effects, I of course mean like the the rebirth kind of bringing from the grave back to the battlefield attacking when you do an aggressive thing.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty fucking annoying.
Yeah, so. It's another welcome introduction into the format, so to speak, having this sort of thing. I am glad I think I'm glad that they made it like the weaker 1-drop version versus having it be 3 mana 2/2 flying haste or whatever. I think I'm glad about that. I might be less glad about that when I go to make cuts for it, because 1-drops in the past year in red actually went from like not very good to now suddenly there's a lot of competition in that set, or in the section. Like even from Kamigawa, we got like 2 or 3 really good ones. Just
that was the exact set I was thinking of. Like, wasn't there one recently that when we did hot takes, we're like, how many good 1-drops are they gonna put in here?
Off the top of my head, that set had Rabbit Battery, Reinforced Iron, and I think maybe one other one.
What a good set. Can we just do Kamigawa again?
They already tried that, and it worked.
Yeah, we just need to make sure that they spend 4 years of development time on it again instead of the, 2-month turnaround that we've been on for most other sets.
Yeah.
But yeah,
this
I mean, Phoenix
specifically, I think
seems
it's
solid. I would definitely test it in my opinion, because it does depend on how often you're able to get the Phoenix triggering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you can't really make the ability go off, that return ability,
yeah,
a 1/1 flying haste that can't block is really awkward.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not impactful enough.
Not terrible because you have equipment to boost evasive things.
That's valid. That's actually very valid. This on turn 1, hit him for 1, turn 2, bone splitter it.
Yeah, so like
that's pretty good, huh?
There is some play to that, but
yeah,
it's not enough on its own. So you do have to be able to do the Phoenixy thing.
You know what I'm actually curious about with this card? I want to know how often, once people start playing with it, you end up being able to attack with 3 or more creatures, but you don't have the mana. Like maybe you just cast something with haste to get the 3rd creature, but you ended up with like 1 mountain left over or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm curious about, because you might be able to get that sort of battalion-esque factor going in without them.
Yeah, that can happen.
All right, next up is much more of a Swiss Army knife of a card. This is Smash to Dust, 1 and a red for a common sorcery. Choose one. Destroy target artifact, destroy target creature with defender, or Smash to Dust deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. I think this card is pretty nice. It is flexible. The thing that stands out to me is the final ability there. Right now, I have decided to play End the Festivities, which is 1 mana common sorcery. It deals 1 to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. So that hits a little bit more things, including the 1 just to the opponent. But being able to alternatively destroy an artifact and destroy a creature with defender, the creature with defender thing seems like it's probably flavor text, but there's Wall of Omens, there's that blue defender we were just talking about earlier. Wed does have a hard time.
Don't ever do that again.
Ooh.
Never fucking do that again.
I'm sorry. Red does have a hard time dealing with some of those larger defenders. So that's not why I would play this card.
No, that's the flavor text that might come up and be kind of nice, but...
It is cool that it might come up, Anyway, I could see this being played, in a sort of control deck to destroy an equipment or ping out some tokens. I could see it being played in the aggro deck for, less often, but still could happen. It's just kind of nice.
I like it for token control, and it's going to hit a decent number of utility creatures as well.
Mm-hmm. To finish off red,
we have the cutest card in this set.
That's right. It's Phoenix Chick. A single red mana. All right. 1 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Druid at uncommon.
The fucking Goblin Bees Nuts joke has ruined me every time someone says Goblin now.
A 2/2 Globlin?
Sprouting Goblin on these nuts.
Oh, that's so cute. This one has kicker for a single green. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, search your library for a land with a basic land type. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. That can get shocklands and duels. Kinda cool. Not, the reason why you're playing it, but nice to know.
Yeah.
And then at all times, regardless of the kicker, it has the ability to pay a single red and tap it and sacrifice a land. That's a lot of costs, but you draw a card.
Cool.
I hope that this is playable in a mono red deck. I don't know if it will be. Because if it's not, I would really rather not have this be a Gruul card in my Gruul section.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I think, I like the card. I don't think I can really defend it, though.
No, if you're going to have the arguable, maybe it's just a Gruul card, there's a way better one we're about to talk about in a few cards.
Yeah, Bog Badger.
Yeah, Bog Badger, exactly. That's the card.
Speaking of Bog Badger...
Stop it. I guess that can be our segue. Let's move on to green.
Well, hold on. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really want to say about Spreading Goblin.
These nuts.
I guess I'll just say... Damn it. That's what I was going to do. Okay. Yeah, anyway. All right. Sorry if that was your favorite card from the set. Fuck you. We're moving on.
We're moving on to green.
Anyway, we got Bog Badger. 2 and a green for a 3/3 common badger. It has kicker of a single black mana. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, creatures you control gain menace end of turn. I think I like this less than the average in duel.
I think the big thing for this to shout out is that it's common.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I think really anybody that's pushing green aggro that might have black aggro as well, this ends games.
It's a lot of ifs, and I would never play this outside of a Golgari deck.
Yeah, you only kick this. This is a Golgari card.
Yeah.
This is a 4 mana card.
Yeah. Some of these, like I talked about, the uncommon ones and all that, have really nice balances. This is what I'm talking about where I'm saying, this only gets kicked.
Yeah. Yes, maybe you'll play it as a 3 mana 3/3 because
But that's not why you put it in the deck.
You put it in the deck as a 4 mana. I'm trying to win the game when I played this.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to play a 4 mana Golgari card... Actually, you can finish what you were going to say.
Nah, let's go.
No, fuck
Did you have anything else relevant to add?
Not really.
Okay. Yeah, and if I'm going to play a 4 mana Golgari card, I'm going to play this next card. Though I do think this one can just go in the green section. It is Tear Asunder. 1 and a green for an instant and uncommon. Exile target artifact or enchantment. And then it has kicker for 1 and a black. If this spell was kicked, exile target non-land permanent instead. So it's just better naturalize with the option to just exile any non-land permanent. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of better naturalizes now, though.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but that's awesome.
Yes,
that's
it is.
Awesome.
It's still
the
probably the best one, but the
yeah.
better naturalize isn't the big shock here.
What the fuck? They printed Maelstrom Pulse at uncommon? I think it's Maelstrom Pulse, right?
The fact that I'm not even stopping you anymore tells you how unfunny it is, and I'm just letting you rot on stage.
That's fine. Eventually it'll become funny again.
We already hit that and passed it. We're back on the bottom side.
Yeah, but it ebbs and flows, my dude.
Big Chungus is coming back, guys.
Yeah. Big Chungus is funny. Anyway.
Is it time for morbing?
It's morbin time, Pogleaf.
It's time for Brad's favorite card in the set. Not actually true, but damn, it's up there.
Tailswipe?
Yep. This is a card I've asked for them to print for literally forever.
I'll never not.
The only one we got was that the snow one.
Yeah, that's what I currently play. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you read the card?
So Tailswipe is a single green mana for an instant.
Come on.
Choose target creature you control and target creature you don't control. If you cast this spell during your main phase, the creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Then those creatures fight each other. Get fucked, Eric. I did the whole thing without even stumbling while you tried.
I mean, for certain definitions of stumbling, yeah.
Yeah, you weren't walking.
So anyway, this to me is like one of my favorite cards in the set because for so long I've asked for just give me instant Prey Upon. And then we got 10 years later and instant Prey Upon isn't good enough anymore like it was a decade ago.
Yeah.
And to be honest, now we've got all of those like Rabid Bite equivalents where you just straight up deal the damage.
Yeah, fucking ram through, which is just insane.
Yeah. So like Tailswipe barely scratches through on a power level standpoint there, but they finally did it without being a snow card. Because what was that one? The Blizzard one.
It's called Blizzard Brawl.
I knew it. Right, I knew it. But I was like, that one just makes me sad because that one's snow based and you have the like tons of people going, well, I don't want to play snow stuff. And
you know what's funny? The whole snow thing, I'm one of the people who plays the snow basics. I bought a bunch of snow basics to go with it. I just, what has it now been, like 3 years or something like that since they printed those cards? However long it's been, I can officially say I regret doing that.
I don't regret it, but I also have cooled off on it to I will just swap back to not using them at a certain point, if that makes sense. Like I run
like 3 cards that care about it at this point. And like one of them was Blizzard Brawl, and now I can probably just swap that out. Like Blizzard Brawl might be better more often than Tailswipe is, but it's so much easier. You know, my cube's already complicated enough to explain to people. I don't need to also add in, also I play snow basics, so if anything says basics, you can just assume it's talking about snow basics and like just fuck off. You know, like
I still wish the Colorless Matters cards and the Snow Matters cards were combined into just basic land mana matters cards.
Yep, I agree.
And I would be so much more on board with both sets.
Yeah, like I end up having to remove Eyesight Golem. Okay, that's fine at this point. Anyway, this card is totally respectable.
Sure.
I think that losing the Indestructible from Blizzard Brawl will actually probably not matter as much as you might expect. Just getting the +1/+1 might be enough.
It's what made Blizzard Brawl act more like a bite.
Mm-hmm. So, instant can be huge.
It can be. I'm really happy this exists. I know that its time has kind of passed by the time it finally existed.
Yeah. All right, you ready to finish off green?
Finish me off, Daddy.
All right, son. Next is...
That wasn't weird.
To finish off green, we've got Yavimaya Iconoclast. 1 and a green for a 3/2 uncommon elf. It has trample. It also has kicker for a single red. When Yavimaya Iconoclast enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, it gets +1/+1 and gains haste until. This is better Flint Hoofboar.
You're correct. You're correct. It's better Flint Hoofboar. But like, this is just fucking good.
Yep.
I don't even. Yeah, sure. I had to look up Flint Hoofboar because I was like, that's not even close to the same. We ran it back in like
2014.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Christian, for those who weren't here for the pregame, Christian had completely misremembered Flint Hoofboar and was not excited by this card because he lived in a dream world.
Slightly worse Flint Hoofboar, so I didn't even care about it. But yeah, For some reason, I thought Flinthoof Boar got the haste if you controlled a mountain as well. So I thought it was just like a 2 mana 3/3 haste. And I saw this, I was like, okay, it's 4 mana, it's got trample, but it's 4 power, it's got trample, but it's 3 mana. I don't care about that. I was just misremembering it.
Yeah. So like this card is just very strong. Like 3/2 trample for 2, and then you go to the temporary 4/3 trample with haste for 3, which is a big damage pump. And then I mean it still just sits around as a 3/2 trample afterwards. Mm-hmm. Like if you're playing anything mid-range aggressively slanted, this is not a card I want to see when I'm the control player.
Right, but it's kind of just an unexciting thing at the same time.
That is the argument.
I'm glad you agree with that.
Yes,
that's my biggest problem with it.
Like it's good, but there's other options that are more interesting to me that are just as good, and maybe you can slot this in at 2 in your green section.
I have a couple competing thoughts on this. So one is that so I guess it's like 3 different competing thoughts. One of them is that right now my Gruul section is very much dedicated to that Persist combo deck.
Right.
I've got like 2 of my 4 multicolored Gruul cards are ways to set off that engine, right? It doesn't have to be that way, and I think that if you're not pushing that deck at all, or not even playing that deck, it gets a lot easier to include these kinds of cards because you have more slots available, and also because your Gruul section is probably... that is the archetype you're supporting.
Right.
Because there's not that many Gruul archetypes you can support in Peasant.
No, if you're not doing the combo stuff, you're most likely just doing aggressive mid-range.
Yeah, Stompy, right? One of the big reasons why I came off of Stompy and went onto the combo deck is because there weren't that many cards that really supported that deck. This is a card that supports that deck. So if I were to pull back from the Persist combo, I think this is a perfect example of a card I would slot in its place, because I think that this is the perfect example of a card that is low costing but aggressive. Like, this feels Gruul, whereas a lot of my Gruul decks prior, they feel like elves and burn spells. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Let's start off with Tura Kennerud, Sky Knight.
Yep.
I can't correct you. That's the correct way to read that.
Tura Kennerud. 2 white, blue for an uncommon 3/3 legendary creature, human knight. It has flying. It has, whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery spell, make a 1/1 white soldier creature token. I do like this card, but I'm reading it that way because it's a little annoying. So I think the best thing this card has going for it is it's doing something a little bit more interesting in Azorius. Because Azorius pretty much is like, you're doing flyers, you're doing control, you're doing blink. That's pretty much your option. Not a lot of them meld well together, which is a problem. You know, like the blink package is pretty much just Soul Herder and the other fucking card, the 1 mana card now. Like, it's just...
Yeah, and like you've got this like tempo versus control versus
ephemerate. That's it. Yeah, so it's like that now is not really even an archetype so much as just a couple cards. The Flyers deck totally can be a thing, but the payoffs for it are not the most exciting. It's pretty much just a bunch of anthems, right? And so that's not always the most fun either. On top of that, blue-white decks have this weird issue I've noticed where there are a lot of really good spells in blue and white, as you would expect, but the archetypes that are supported oftentimes in Peasant tend to be creature-focused, like that Flyers deck. You can certainly play tempo decks that have spells in them in addition, but most of your payoffs care about the creatures and less so the spells, and the reason surrounding that is because it's hard to support the control deck since there are no white wraths.
Right.
So blue-white is in a little bit of a weird spot right now. What I like about this card is that it gives blue-white a reason to be in the Spells Matters archetype, while also kind of bridging that gap between a blue-white token strategy, which on occasion comes up, or has come up in the past, but some of those cards I've since cut simply because there was no support for that strategy. I could see myself bringing back cards that do fit that strategy again, and I could see, that sort of deck thriving. The one problem I do have with this card is that it does cost 5 mana, and I'm wondering if that's just too much mana for that deck to actually start paying off.
Even beyond just being too much mana, I think it's just too late in the curve to have enough instants and sorceries left to actually like push and take advantage of. Like,
and everything's a little bit inverted, right? Like with Murmuring Mystic, you get the defensive body and then you make a bunch of evasive dudes, whereas this is like a mid-rangey invasive body that makes a bunch of ground dudes.
Yeah, like it's not bad. I have concerns that it's going to be a 5-mana 3/3 that maybe makes a 1/1.
Yes, that's exactly my thought. Is it's a 5-mana 3/3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to do enough.
Yeah, it's upsetting because I think the niche that it's filling would be appreciated. I just don't think this is quite the card to push it yet.
Yes, I agree.
All right, next up is one that's a little bit easier to evaluate. This is Black and White Blood Artist. Black and White Blood Artist is black and white for a 2/2 Blood Artist with Death Touch. Okay, it's not quite Blood Artist.
Just didn't even fucking try. Like, had enough of that nonsense and just said, no.
Elas Il-Kor, Sadistic Pilgrim. White and a black for an uncommon 2/2 legendary creature, Phyrexian Core Cleric. This creature has Death Touch. It also has 2 other abilities. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. I think this very easily just takes over the slot that Cruel Celebrant had.
Sure.
The effect triggers a little bit less frequently, but the body is much more relevant.
You're saying much more just because of Death Touch, right?
Yes.
Okay, I was wondering if you misremembered things.
Cruel Celebrant's a 1/2?
Yeah, just a 1/2.
Yeah.
So
it's still, they're both very nothing. It's just the Death Touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this one's obviously like near impossible to attack into.
I do dislike the fact that this one doesn't trigger on itself.
And my other thought is this one is not near impossible to attack into because they know that you need this effect.
Yeah.
Like your Blood Artists are your weak point when you're playing Aristocrat type decks.
Well,
like
yeah,
it's nice to have the option to trade it off to something scary, but
right.
Like,
keep in mind, I'm comparing it to what amounts to a vanilla 1/2 in battle.
Right.
Like it.
Yeah.
You can't attack with Cruel Celebrant. You can't really block with Cruel Celebrant.
The phrase "in battle" just broke my brain.
Sorry, in combat.
I'm like, in battle, in glorious battle.
And I'm looking at the next card going like, yep, he thinks that's glorious battle.
Next up, Next up, we've got Baird.
Bayard.
Bayard. I've seen that name before. It's not like that's new. I just don't know how to pronounce it with my mouth. I feel like I can say it.
I know how to pronounce it with my ass, but not my mouth.
Well, like when I say it in my brain, I'm like, ah, yes.
One's got more experience than the other.
One pronounces sounds more correctly. Next up, we've got Brad, Argivian Recruiter. Brad is red and white for a 2/2 legendary creature human soldier at uncommon. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power greater than its base power, create a 1/1 white soldier creature. I actually fucking love this card.
Okay.
I love me too.
I love Brad, Argivian Recruiter. Okay, so this card is a very interesting sort of set of payoffs. I'm glad they worded it exactly the way they did in every single way, basically. You know, you don't have to wait a turn cycle. It doesn't have to be specifically this card. It doesn't have to be a token thing. It doesn't have to be, you know, if it has a +1/+1 counter, if it, you know, like there's lots of different ways that it works. And actually, correct me if I'm wrong, if you use a pump spell, you can get this effect before the pump goes away, right? Because it's the beginning of your end step?
Yeah, it should be.
Yes.
At the very least, if it's like until end of turn, you can stack them in such a way or order them in such a way that you get it. So that's kind of cool too. Even if it's a temporary buff, I believe you still get the effect. Getting that effect is easy with counters. It's with pump cards. It can be easy with equipment or enchantment auras.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of stuff in Boros that pump power.
Anthems, right? Yeah. Like even the next card, actually.
Yeah, if you're playing tokens, you just get your intangible virtue and you're making more tokens.
Yeah. Anything that does like a temporary anthem until end of turn, that's going to trigger this. So this is effectively a 2-mana 2/2 that you're hoping is going to make you a 1/1 every one of your end steps until they destroy this. You won't every time, but I think it's a pretty high chance.
I think you expect it to give you a 1/1 every turn.
Yeah.
In the deck that's actually going to be playing it, and I think most of the time that's going to be accurate. when it's not, it's going to be super disappointing. But at least you have a blocker for a turn to chump.
But isn't that kind of just Boros in general?
Yes.
It's like you either do what the card wants you to do full on, or it doesn't work quite right, and
you signed up for it. You signed up for what?
Yeah. That's kind of how I look at it.
I do think this is a very cool card. I like that it plays with a lot of other things. I don't know if the power is quite to what I want for a multicolor. Like, the best case, you're getting a 1/1 token every turn.
Mm-hmm.
It's not,
and I think that it's certainly not the most aggressive thing you could be doing.
No, but it's also not bad. Like, this is just a 2-drop, so okay.
Can I run one thing by you real quick?
Sure.
No, you're paying us to be here.
There's Sky Knight Vanguard. Do you remember Sky Knight Vanguard? Do you run Sky Knight Vanguard?
No.
I don't think you run Sky Knight Vanguard.
No.
That is the uncommon from M20, so it's the same cost for a 1/2 flyer. Whenever it attacks, you get a 1/1 non-flying token. Big difference there. That's attacking. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that one. I liked it because it was tapped in attacking and super aggressive.
Yep. This is kind of the less aggressive, but more likely to consistently get the effect, I think. I know you're probably like, well, all you have to do is attack with the other one, but flyers exist. Things with reach exist. It's not a free attack every turn.
Yeah.
I think they're comparable in power level, but what I like about this new one, is that it is more of a flagpost payoff card than Sky Knight Vanguard is.
It plays into more other options than just, I swung my dude.
Yeah. It allows you to build a more combo-y deck too. Like if you're trying to sacrifice the tokens, maybe you've got like a Goblin Bombardment, right? Sky Knight Vanguard doesn't, I mean, I guess you can instant speed with the...
Goblin Bombardment's a terrible example on that
Goblin Bombardment is such a good card.
It is.
But I see what they would print more of them.
That were playable, I agree. Yeah. Either way, I think that if you're playing Sky Knight Recruiter, sorry, that's not what it's called at all. Vanguard. Sky Knight Vanguard. Sky Knight Recruiters, both of them combined.
Yeah.
Brad Sky Knight Recruiter.
Does everything.
Yep. That's good. We'll end there. Next is Turi de Vavenenevenant, Fury Rider.
Perfect.
How am I supposed to pronounce that last name?
The Evenant.
You did that so flawlessly, and I don't think I can do it.
Come on, dude. You gotta really channel your inner Tori.
Oh, ooh, that was good. All right. Tori de Avenant, Fury Rider. Perfect. 1 red, white for a 3/3 legendary creature, human knight at uncommon. It has vigilance. It has trample. It slices. It dices. Whenever this fucking card attacks, all other attacking creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Other red attacking creatures you control gain trample until end of turn, and then untap each other white attacking creature you control. The idea there is that they have vigilance, quote unquote.
Yeah.
They just had to template it in that way.
You give red things trample and you give white things vigilance. Yeah.
And then it's both, so it gets the vigilance and the trample. I mean, what I mean is it already has it. And then everything else gets the +1/+1. This is more of your, like, a very Boros-y Boros card.
It's a generically solid Boros card.
Yeah. In a world where there already exist generically solid Boros cards. But this one at least is a little bit cooler than just like, it's red and white for a 3/2, that blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like this one's a little bit more of that top end. One thing that's interesting about the Boros decks is that they already have so many good 2-drops in mono red or mono white.
Yep.
That you don't need Boros 2-drops. You know what they don't have is good top end.
Not in uncommon, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, not at my power level. So I actually think this fills in that niche really, really well.
Yeah.
And I think that's really all I have to say about it. I think it's of the correct power level. I would hope so, at least. And
I think it's quite strong.
Easily win games. Yeah.
For what you're trying to do, and given that it's a more generic kind of card, I think it is going to fit well in most uncommon cubes. I don't think you're going to be disappointed with it at all. I have hesitations with a 4-mana 3 toughness creature that doesn't have haste in those decks, but
sure, yeah,
it's one of those, like, I can't use like, oh, it dies to lightning bolt as like, oh, why this card's bad for everything. It's just that is a case that will come up, and you need to accept that that's a potential downside. I don't think that downside's a huge concern for what the potential upside is in the deck, but
I think it also falls directly into that same mentality we were just talking about with the last card, which is that in Boros, you're just looking to do your thing, and if they interrupt you, you kind of don't have a lot of recourse. You just kind of have to hope that they don't.
Sometimes you have to either like plan out your play patterns with that in mind, or sometimes you just have to make sure they have it. If they don't have it, you win. If they do, you probably lose.
And if you have enough of those kinds of cards in your deck, then they just can't have it all the time.
You just keep overwhelming them with it. Yeah, that's kind of the point. So, I think this is a solid option.
I think this card's totally cool, and maybe one day I'll be able to pronounce that second word.
Maybe.
All right, next card.
Next up is Lagomos. Yeah, I can say that. Lagomos, Hand of Hatred. 1 black-red for a 1/3 legendary creature human shaman, add uncommon. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. And you can also tap this to search your library for a card and put it in your hand, then shuffle. Activate this if 5 or more creatures died this turn.
So the last ability is flavor text, but...
Yeah. So I actually did not read this correctly. It sacrifices at the beginning of the next end step. I thought it was at the end of combat. I am vastly more interested in this card.
Yeah.
Isn't this kind of cool for an uncommon? I thought it was a rare at first.
It is very cool for an uncommon.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't know exactly what else you have.
Yeah, because it's not an end of combat and because it says that it's tapped and attacking or anything like that, you just get a free 2/1 every turn.
Yeah.
That you need to do something with it, be it attacking with it, be it sacrificing it to an effect. But that's what Rakdos is trying to do already.
Right.
And we have such a lack of recurring anything. That's like well costed, or in this case, free. And so, yeah, it doesn't matter that last ability may never come up or may come up like once every 5 years, right? Like it is simply the fact that this is a 1/3, which honestly is a fine body in some board states.
It's okay. I mean, it's actually a solid amount of toughness for that deck.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
it's similar to like Mayhem Devil's like the biggest creature in that deck most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Once you hit that 3rd toughness, that is a crucial point in aggressive decks for my cube, because
where you can actually block.
Well, actually, I was going to say versus Pyroclasms, versus your Drown and Sorrow effects, that kind of stuff.
That's
true. There are not that many real board wipes.
Yeah.
Or things that even approach that. So getting that 3rd toughness means that you can even go so far, I wouldn't necessarily say you should, but you could go so far as to play those cards in this deck. And maybe, this sticks around, and now that the board's been cleared out in certain matchups, you're still getting that 2/1 every turn.
Yeah. I think that's a bit too cute generally, but I see what you're saying.
Just the fact that it's an option is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then also it's, board presence to keep around versus the decks that are doing that to you.
Yeah, I think this Lagomos is just a solid testing option. Like,
very, very cool.
It does exactly what you want in those color pairs. Trying to figure out like what to cut for it is going to be tough because like I wouldn't cut Mayhem Devil.
It's so funny you say that. I actually was about to say the opposite of that. I was saying that I'm probably going to cut Mayhem Devil because I don't play fetches, and so specifically Sacrifice doesn't nearly come up as often in a game. Dies certainly does, but
I mean
Sacrifice is a little bit more niche, and I think
staring at a card that says Sacrifice.
Yeah. Right.
No. I understand what you're saying, and maybe over time we're getting more to where my opinion on that is like a little bit flawed. But generally speaking, when I've had Mayhem Devil, it doesn't go off, I think, nearly as much as it does in higher powered cubes.
That's fair. Yeah, that makes sense. But either way, I think this is definitely test worthy, and I'm excited for it. I don't think it makes it in rare cubes.
Probably not. You guys just have too many planeswalkers.
It gets closer than it should.
It's interesting. Yeah.
But no.
Maybe for like a more budget kind of stuff. Like
we have a lot of options.
We do have a lot of options, yeah. Yeah, the blast ability is just it's honestly a nothing.
That's my problem.
Like, if it was 3 creatures died, it could come up. Like it would be like this is rare.
You couldn't do the being D-tutor at that point, though, because there would be some standard deck that could do it.
Oh, it gives a shit. Fuck them.
But, I mean, wizards.
No, they don't. They only care about EDH. Don't make a fucking lie.
That's true. I read Maro's article, too. All right, let's move on.
Queen Alanal of Ruidoc. Green, white for a asterisk divided by asterisk. Legendary creature, Elf Noble, at uncommon. When this card... No, what? card's power and toughness are each equal to...
I'm just going to make up my own shit.
This card's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. If one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier creature token are created instead. This is a cool card.
I'm so happy you got it in one go.
I can't believe I did either. So Queen Elenol of Ruidoc is a very interesting card to me. It actually seems really, really fun. Any of those sorts of, if you would make a token instead, do this instead, or do this in addition, yet another effect that we don't really get at Uncommon. So
yeah, but I thought your
cool to have an
green-white was mostly focused on like combo and
+1/+1 counters. Yeah. And you're right. And actually, that is probably the biggest thing I was going to bring up about this card. So I'm not going to run this currently.
Okay. But you could.
But I totally could. And I think if you are running a green-white token-based strategy, if you're pushing that, this is a fantastic card to add into your section to be a very fun and maybe even powerful payoff to it. I don't think it's broken.
I do remember when we were putting together like the board game cube originally, there was green-white token stuff, and it wasn't good. Green's never been a particularly good token support for cubes.
Yeah,
that's been a while.
Peasant,
it's been like
you can always
years.
run like Overrun as a payoff in green, and that's always going to be a potentially very powerful thing to be doing. But the reason why I don't run it is because there's already enough token decks in the Mardu section. Really.
Right.
You don't really need to spread it out into green. However, a lot of cubes do. I think especially once you get down into peasant level, they especially do. Unfortunately, this is uncommon, so this doesn't really help them at all.
You meant pauper.
What did I say?
Peasant
Again? Yeah. Sorry, I got peasant on the brain. So much better than pauper. Oh, God. Poor fools.
It's hard being so much better.
They don't even get fetch lands.
Ain't that right, rich friends? Aren't we all very cool and superior? One day I'll be just like you, and they better watch out.
Oh, there's
actually,
definitely
not quite
a fantastic joke there.
We
all got
it.
It's the Futurama thing, right? Where Fry's like, Lilo. Wow. What the fuck's her name?
Lilo?
Lilo?
And Stitch?
And Stitch, yeah. When she's like, Fry, you're not rich, why are you cheering? And he's like, yeah, I'm not now, but one day I might be, and then people like me better watch out.
Exactly.
Pretty good. All right, apparently fuck that card. God, we are ready to be done.
Yes, we are.
All right.
I can't wait to listen to the final cut, and it's just not there. We just skipped right to Belmore.
It's going to be like 15
seconds.
Like,
you know what? Fuck it.
he just
it's gone.
Whoever's doing it just cuts from Legomo straight to Balmore.
Especially they're going to be like, God, please just talk about the card. And then they get to the part where I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not running it. And they're like, ah!
All right, we can move on to Bird Wizard that I'm going to take because I think this is pretty cool.
Oh, okay, go for it.
We've got Balmore, Battle Mage Captain, blue and a red for a 1/3 Bird Wizard with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain trample until end of turn. I'm here, man. Like, we're in the Is It Spellsy deck that's attacking, getting big, getting swole. It's awesome. I love this card.
You know what's actually kind of cool to me about this card is that many of my Is It decks, there's not that many cards that do it, but there are many staples in the Is It deck that make tokens on instant or sorcery casts. So you've got your Young Pyromancer, you've got your Murmuring Mystic, you've got your Saheeli Uncommon Planeswalker.
It is a very token-heavy deck.
Yeah, you just end up building, and especially, of course, there's all the instants and sorceries that make tokens, all of your, Dragon Fodders, or your, the other one that makes 3, but Hordeling Outburst. Yeah, so it's like you've got all those kinds of effects on top of it that you might also be playing. If you're playing 3 colors, this would be potentially a reason, if you're looking to support this kind of strategy, to run Raise the Alarm over that card from earlier, right? Because you're getting the tokens, and it's also a spell that triggers things. So those decks end up becoming token decks naturally. It's not even something I've been trying to push.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this so fucking cool, is that this is another card that doesn't need to be in a deck that's specifically trying to go super wide. The effect is just free. Happen. Yeah, even if it's only this that's getting the effect, that can be kind of cool and be very powerful.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I'll say my only hang-up with this card is the instant or sorcery instead of non-creature spell, because we've had it be too narrow before with certain effects.
But you know what? This is exactly what I was talking about earlier. This is precisely why I hate adding blue enchantments, because these cards are very cool, and I would rather not have it be an issue, right? I'll just stop playing a bunch of blue enchantments and just play, potentially slightly weaker instant and sorcery versions of the effect, and then drafters don't even have to fucking worry about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's no hang up at that point.
We've seen how strong 3-drop Saheeli hybrid is because it's non-creature and not just instant or sorcery.
Exactly.
But, I mean, I think, honestly, I think Baelmore or Battle Mage Captain is something debatable for rare cubes as well. Just because as much as at uncommon those decks go wide, it's even way more for rares. Like, everything in that deck is making tokens. Like, you're just going wide, and it happens, and it's cool. And, like, this is a way to end games quickly, in my opinion, which has kind of always been one of those, like, that deck ends games, but it can get grindy sometimes, and you can get, like, oh no, the control deck is, like, 1 or 2 turns away from stabilizing, and I'm screwed.
I think that this being on a board state is also a nightmare for the opponent with the threat of activation in combat. Yeah. Like, you don't even have to play this aggressively. It's not when this attacks do this or whatever. So you can have this with even some walls on the battlefield, right?
Yeah.
Again, your Murmuring Mystic, which slots perfectly into this. You can just
and instead of just blocking, you're just eating stuff.
Yeah, and they're like, I want to attack with my 2 toughness thing, but I'm afraid you're going to cast, like, opt into something else, and now your 0-5 kills it, right? Like, it's just like, it's so nonsense. And also on the attack, right? Like, maybe they see your token, maybe it's a 2-1 token or whatever it is, right? A 2-2 token, and they've got something with 3 toughness, and they're just like, I don't want to do that. Okay, maybe I'll go for the 1 power thing instead, right? Like, it's just it is a mind fuck for the opponent, which I think is really powerful.
So the last one is Vohar Vidalian. Yeah, Vidalian. What the fuck is a Vidalian?
All right, you made it.
It's like the shackles.
Yep. No,
that's Vidalkin.
No.
Basically the same thing, right? Or is that
Vohar
Vidalian? Vohar Vidalian Desecrator.
Holy shit! Fuck.
All right.
Why did you give me this, you dumbass?
This is why.
Fucking hilarious that you screwed that up.
All right, try it again.
I can make this easier.
Oh no! He's gonna make it 7,000.
No.
All right. Vohar Vidalian Desecrator is blue-black for a 1/2 legendary creature Phyrexian Merfolk Wizard. Vohar has tap, draw a card, then discard a card. If you discarded an instant or sorcery card this way, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Vohar also has 2, sacrifice Vohar. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that spell would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. Activate only as a sorcery.
You were so close.
How was I only so close? I got it right.
Well, you said into a graveyard instead of your graveyard. And it doesn't actually matter.
Oh, fuck you.
Yeah. No, I actually missed that as well. So,
I stopped long enough to glance at the next 2 lines so that I could finish it off in a natural
I know,
speaking voice.
It was hilarious because I was like, he stopped, he paused, he doesn't know what buffering, the word if is.
He's buffering.
No, I was like,
he's having a stroke.
I'm gonna get halfway through the sentence. It's gonna say mana value, and you're just gonna hear a fucking shotgun blast as I finally end it. Mana value has destroyed my ability to read magic cards.
It honestly, truly has.
It fucks everything up. I get to it, and my brain is like, this is not how this should format.
It's hilarious because you can, as he's reading it, you can hear that he's like trying to say mana value because that's what the word he's looking at is, but his brain's telling him converted mana cost, and nothing works. Like, the communication between the brain and the mouth is just not linked up.
So Vohar in general is an interesting little option. I know Christian's not hot on it.
I think it's fine.
But if we're looking at it like blue-black, as I said before, is a choose-your-own-adventure. Like, it's whatever you want to support.
Even at uncommon.
Yeah,
absolutely. Even if you want to just do like a control, just no weird flavors, I just want to play control heavy blue-black. Right. You're probably going to want to play a bunch of draw discard type stuff, abuse graveyard type stuff. It's just what blue-black loves to do.
That's how you're taking those small advantages over the game.
Yeah. And if you're trying to do that with your section, then I actually think this is a solid pick. I don't think it's crazy strong by any means, but it is a nice value duder.
Yeah, I mean, like, end of the day, this is a looter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in a 2-color section. So, like...
It's a rough call for that, but I know I've seen people who want blue-black to be looting heavy control, graveyard heavy control, lots of discard matter.
This is a neat way of doing it. Like, the gaining 1 life if you're going to discard an instant or sorcery is not nothing against some decks that like actually is annoying. And getting to be able to cast something back is strong. I'm disappointed about it only being a sorcery speed, but you can still target instants. So you can still hit like the instant card draw type stuff to get more advantage and stuff like that. But which I do think it'll come up. Like, it'll be a useful option later in the game when you're like, I'm in control of this game now.
Yeah, this card doesn't do anything anymore at this point. Like,
I'm just going to trade it in for my kill spell and really solidify that I've won this game. And I like that as an option.
I think it's additive distraction, but it really irks me about it making the opponent lose 1 life with that effect, because I look at that and I'm just like, who the fuck cares? Yeah, like I said, it might be additive distraction because everything else is totally respectable, not breaking any walls down in my opinion, especially in a multicolored section, but when I see the lose 1 life, I'm just like, who the fuck cares, right? Like, it's not...
It means
nothing. You can always say, like, oh, well, every point counts. Yeah, except in this deck, you're swinging... You're either in a Reanimator deck, right? Where you're just, like, play something huge and it just leads you to victory. It doesn't really matter. You're never going to kill them just off of this effect.
No.
And if you're playing a deck that has creatures and is attacking, you probably don't want this card in your deck.
Yeah, no, the loses 1 life is honestly completely irrelevant. The gaining a life is substantially bigger for the card. As memey and dumb as that is, the decks that are going to be playing this they need every life counts for them, not their opponent. They don't give a shit about their opponent's life, because once they've solidified, it doesn't matter. They've controlled the game and are going to win.
Yeah. I'm actually so glad you brought that up, because I wanted to for the exact same reason, but I feel like if those words came out of my mouth, it would have went very differently.
Yeah, no, we would have laughed at you.
You'd be like, oh, of course you care about the life gain.
You wouldn't have been wrong, but we still would have laughed at you.
Exactly. So I'm glad you said it instead.
All right. We can move on to the commander portion of this, because, we didn't just talk about 11 legendary creatures.
You're right, we talked about 9.
Sorry. Well, we've got 2 more to make it around 11, so...
Yep. Yeah, so 2 uncommon commanders that were in the, the commander set that goes along
Devil May Cry.
Devil May Cry set, yeah. They're gone.
Oh, they're not gone.
It's just that card got smaller. Okay.
I just fixed breads.
You fixed
and
nothing.
They're gone. Yeah, so there's 2 that interest me enough to discuss. One much more than the other one, but we'll start with the one I'm less excited about. So this is Ramirez de Pietro, Pillager. 2 blue-black for a 4/3 uncommon legendary human pirate. When this card enters the battlefield, you lose 2 life and create 2 treasure tokens. Whenever 1 or more pirates you control deal combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library. You may cast that card for as long as it remains. I will give you that 100% this card looks really fun to play.
Yeah, it does. And I think it's actually defendably good.
Yeah.
Because you play it and you get 2 treasure tokens, which is actually very useful throughout the game.
It sure would make those off-color kickers way easier.
That's true.
Yes. And any splash that you do.
It's useful in everything, yeah. But
yeah.
Yeah.
The combat damage thing is strong.
And fun.
Limited because it's only for pirates, and luckily he is a pirate. But there's not so many other pirates that you're going to be able to take advantage of it.
Do you know what immediately springs to mind, though, for me? Changeling Outcast.
Yeah.
Of course it does.
Yeah, I do love it.
Unblockable, and it's a pirate.
Yeah.
Now, that's a single card. But it's in the right colors. It's kind of in the right similar game plan to an extent.
I think This card would interest me more if it had the any color stuff for the casting of it.
What?
You can use mana of any color to cast the spell.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it doesn't say that.
Like the
that's why the treasures
shinobi,
are
there. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's why the treasures are there.
Yeah, which is exactly why the treasures are there. And it doesn't, like, because it has the treasures, it doesn't actually make the card bad. It's just, it would be so much better.
I also just wish it said you could play, so you could take the lands.
Yes.
Oh.
It's kind of all of those small hits against it that I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. I do still think it's powerful enough to test if you're interested in the card, though. Like, if you think it's cool and you're like, yeah, I want to play that. Yeah, cool. Go for it.
We made it 2 cards away from the end without me doing my requisite Spooty misreads a card and hates it after he misreads it correctly.
That's okay. You get on part 1 the one that I did. I did it before we recorded, but I was still mad during the time of recording, so I just did a whole rant.
Yep, that sounds about right. Yeah, okay, so I thought this card did both of those things.
All right.
That's why I thought it was fun, because I thought it was a potential Gonti.
Do the last one, and you're canceled if you can't pronounce the name.
Torwalki.
There you go. As long as you're confident, you can pull it off.
That's true.
Right.
Why does he have a random sticker thing? Like he's a rare.
What?
Yeah, that was discussed. They're not quite sure why that is the case.
Okay. I thought he was the box topper.
He is.
Yeah.
But that should not be there.
It looks wrong. It looks like a misprint.
It is, but whatever.
Yeah.
WotC quality control has been perfect this year.
Yeah, as it always is.
All right, read the card.
So, Torwalki the Younger is 3 black-red for a 3/3 legendary human archer at uncommon. This Rakdos creature has reach and lifelink. That's normal.
Yeah.
That is weird, isn't it?
It is exceptionally awkward.
Yeah. It also has 2 very powerful effects. If another source you control would deal non-combat damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage plus 1 to that permanent or player instead. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this card deals 2 damage to any target. So
Sweet.
A couple things to quickly cover. That first paragraph does not affect the second paragraph. Because Another source.
Yes.
However...
You're not slinging lightning bolts around, but you're slinging shocks instead. Yes. Oh, no.
No, you're slinging lightning helixes almost, because you do get the lifelink.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's cool. That's really cool to me.
That is cool. That is a nice little bonus.
This has got to be the most interesting Rakdos card we've had in years in Peasant. And I don't know if... Like, we've just discussed how it almost feels like it's outside of the color pie for this color combination. And that can be a very good thing if it's good enough and it can be supported enough. And it can be a thing that makes it impossible to run if it's not, right? Because it's a 5-mana card. It's a 3 toughness creature. It needs other things for it to work. You need to support... I mean, this basically fits into almost like a control strategy or a mid-range strategy where you need... spells, right? Because it doesn't care about your creatures dealing damage, but it does care about your burn spells.
I mean, this is also amazing in the Mardu control decks.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, anytime you kill something, you can just mini lightning helix the opponent, and eventually that will, kill them if you do it 10 times or whatever. And it helps keep you alive. It has reach. It has the lifelink in battle. It's really, really cool. I am a huge fan of this card. This was spoiled very, very early in the spoiler season for this because it was in the Commander set. And I was really, really under the impression it was a rare just because of what it does. And so I was very glad to see that it was uncommon.
I do agree that it's kind of tough to slot it in because generally you're trying to push stuff very hard in that color section. And there's a lot of support for aristocrats and that kind of thing.
Exactly, which this does nothing in.
If you want to have a slow Grixis control deck or big Rakdos or whatever, this is solid. It's like a really interesting signpost card. It's sure going to get your head snapped towards it when you're seeing it for the first time in a cube.
It is definitely one of those that I'd see it and I'd be like, I'm going to try big Rakdos.
Yeah.
I agree with you. However, there are some minor awkwardnesses for that in Peasant Cube specifically. So that deck is one that I really want to support and kind of do support.
Mm-hmm.
The board wipes that do exist, if you want to call them board wipes, are things like Pyroclasm, things like Drown in Sorrow, things like Slice and Dice, etc., where the Rakdos is the color pair that you're going to get the board wipes in instead of black-white or whatever. The problem is that most of them either kill this in the process, or he buffs up Pyroclasm to kill himself.
Yeah.
Like it's really awkward how that happens.
I didn't quite think of that, and
yeah,
that is disappointing.
Yeah, that's not the end of the world.
But he doesn't pump the Drown in Sorrows type stuff.
He doesn't, which is awesome.
Which goes well with it, so...
Yeah, I mean, you know, your opponent has like a 4 toughness thing and like maybe some elves, and you're like, oh no, but then if you cast Drown in Sorrow with this, you can take out the 4 toughness thing as well.
Yeah.
And get some life.
Yeah, it gets my mind thinking, and I like it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. Like, it's the most interesting Rakdos card they've printed in a very, very long time for my cube.
I just thought of how absurd Arc Lightning is with this. Or
dude.
Like just fucking Arc Trail.
Arc Trail, that's a good one.
Arc Trail causes
deals 3 to something,
damage.
2 to something. Arc Trail?
Yeah, Arc Trail deals 7 because of the trigger from this.
Yep. Yeah. No, he does really cool things. Or that Arc Lightning with the 2/2/2 +2 with the life link. It's just
Fiery Confluence.
Or even just turning a lot of your black removal spells into 2-for-1s because you use the removal spell like the Doomblade on their big thing, and then you just get to
shock
eat their
something
elf and gain 2 life.
Yeah.
It's just you get a lot of value out of it if you can build the deck. The problem is, can you build the deck?
Can you build the deck?
I'm not sure yet, but I want to. I desperately want to.
Yeah, I'd say go for it. Give it a shot.
Love it.
Like, if you're bored of what you're doing, you might as well try this in a slot.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have so much aristocrat support in Rakdos, especially in the multicolored section. Like, this is the kind of card where you're like, oh, but...
it's your fun alternative programming card. You throw it in there as your spicy, I don't want to do the other thing today, I want to do this.
Right, yeah. The Mayhem Double, right? Like, I would easily put this in over Mayhem Double.
Sure.
Because we already have things like Mayhem Double. We don't need that.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, years ago, Aristocrats it did not have the redundancy. It didn't have that many options. It was like you needed every single one that was printed. That's just not true anymore. Now we have options. We have other things that support that archetype. You don't have to play every single one of them. So,
and it's also been around for enough years now that people are probably starting to get very bored of that archetype in that color.
Yeah.
So
it happens. That's part of spicing up your cube so you don't get bored of things. Like, we've had these lectures.
Yep.
All right.
That's a great card to end on.
That is a perfect ending note. You're correct. Let's get out of here for the week.
Sounds good.